Hey Freak Show, you want to know how to make the best egg on ribs? Alright, now I'm feeling a little motivated. I'm going to show you. Even though you don't rate. Let's stick around anyway. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Semper Chef. My name is Jason. Thank you for joining me today. Today I'm going to show you how to smoke the perfect ribs using a Texas style smoker. And what a Texas style smoker is, basically you have an offset firebox right here where you have your heat source, and then the smoke goes into the cooking chamber where you put your ribs, chicken, or brisket. So we're going to keep it very simple, so I'm going to show you the process and how to start the fire. I like doing the stick burning method. A lot of people may feel a little intimidated by it by just using nothing but wood, and can have a tendency to over smoke their food, but with the methods I'm going to show you, I'll keep it very simple. So I'm going to go through that method, basically fire control, how to prepare the ribs, which is very simple, and then how to serve them as well too. So first we're going to start building the fire. Okay, so now we're going to start by building our fire. I like to use a nice bed of hot coals first, and then transition over to the half splits or quarter splits of wood to get everything going. All right, so I'm going to utilize a chimney starter to get the fire going. Okay, so now we're going to light the fire. Also keep in mind too that on the bottom I have a custom built grate where more air, when the door is open or when I'm in the process of using the fire control, air can get through and feed the fire. So obviously open the side hatch, light the fire underneath. Okay, so now the coals are nice and hot and we're going to dump them. Also be sure to use some heat resistant gloves. Okay, so now we're going to start spreading the coals out, and what I like to do is use a garden hoe to spread them all out. And then we're going to add our wood. I like to use 3 splits of wood. And lay it up on the top. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the wood that I use. So a couple things to keep in mind. There's various different types of wood that pair well with different types of proteins. For pork, I like using hickory wood. And the reason why I like it is because one, it has a very robust flavor, but the wood's also a workhorse because it has a high amount of lineagen within the wood that is a specific compound that if depending on if the wood has more or less of it, it'll either burn hotter or not as hot whatsoever. So hickory has a pretty good amount and good for keeping consistent temperature. The other wood that I like to use in paired with the ribs is cherry. It has a little bit of a lower lineagen content, but since it is a fruit wood, it's going to taste a little sweeter. And yes, there's actually sugars that run throughout the wood that's going to give you a certain type of flavor. This is going to give you a little bit more of an aromatic, sweeter smell to it, and also slight sweet flavor to the food that you're going to use or smoke with too. But the other thing I like about it is that it will color your ribs a dark mahogany color if used properly. Now keep in mind, I love using cherry, but if you use too much, it will make the protein look very dark where it almost looks burnt. It's not going to be burnt, but it will look very dark. So just one thing to keep in mind as well too. Okay, so now we have a good sized fire going, and the idea is to burn as much wood as you can in order to get a good amount of burning embers. Okay, so now you can see that there's a pretty good sized fire going on, and if you look carefully, there's a nice bed of embers that are starting to form with your wood. So to make it easier, that if you need to refuel, which I like to watch every half hour to 45 minutes, to add another log so you have a constant clean burning fire, that it's going to make your process easier to ignite the wood when you have the more embers. Okay, so we have a pretty good fire going. We're going to close the lid. And then also that when you are controlling your fire, we use the door right here and keep it cracked. All right, so we got our chamber getting nice and hot, warmed up, good temperature. We have our clean smoke that's firing right now too, where there's really no cloudiness to it. It almost looks even clear. Another thing too is I like to have the damper about a quarter of the way. So right now we're going to show you how I prepare the meat and then put it on the smoker. All right, so now we're going to start seasoning our ribs. Now just to keep in mind too, these are baby backs, and then you also have the spare ribs as well, which are pretty good for competition, which is actually the more preferred style of ribs. So just a quick little note here, before you start seasoning, I bought these ribs, and normally there's a membrane that's up on top, but these already came prefabricated where it was taken off. But just how to quickly do it, a demonstration, you normally take a knife, stick it in the side where the bone is at, and don't lift or turn this way with the blade, turn the other way with the dull spine. So therefore it creates a pocket. You could stick your finger in, take a towel, and just slowly pull it so you pull the whole membrane off. Okay, so now we're going to season up our ribs. Just a little thing too is that I like to wear gloves to also prevent cross-contamination, but have one hand to where you grab your protein and then the other hand to where you use your ingredients, so therefore you're not cross-contaminating live proteins. So real simple. Put a little olive oil on it. And we're going to add our spices to it. Okay, now we're going to add our ribs to the smoker. So always remember, protein hand, dry hand. Just simply grab it, open up the smoker, and I basically just like the lid out, just like that. Okay, so now we have our ribs on, and it's very important too to know your smoker, especially of the Texas style, to know where the hot spot's at, or where the cold spots are at, or I should say cooler spots. Now I like to put it closer toward the smokestack, so therefore I'm not getting large amounts of hot heat. And then also it's good to have a little baffle on the side where the heat source is at. I personally like to use bricks because it's just easier to work with. So therefore it kind of acts more as a heat shield, so I'm not fully overcooking my food. Okay, so now we're going to close the lid and let it smoke. Now a couple key things here is that I see a lot of people where they'll open and close the lid checking to see if it's done or whatnot. The idea is if you're looking, you're not cooking. So keep the lid closed. If you don't need to open it, do not open it. And then the other method that we're going to do to ensure that we get a tender rib all the way through is that there's a method called the 3-2-1 method. That means 3 hours of smoke, 2 hours wrap, or what is referred to as the Texas Crutch, and then another hour uncovered. So therefore it finishes off, and then the meat kind of tenses up a little bit, because you don't want the ribs to actually fall off the bone, you want it to pull off the bone. So, and since we're using spare or baby back ribs, I think it's best to use more of a 2-2-1 method. So. Okay, now we're back. Now we're going to see how the ribs are coming along. It's been about 2 hours now. And so one of the things we're going to do too is that when I open it up, I'm going to put a layer of a mixture of apple juice and half of barbecue sauce. You know, you can pick your favorite kind that you like. I prefer more of a slightly sweet but more on the tangy side. And what this is going to do is that it's going to provide a nice little bark or color sheen on it to give it that nice mahogany color. Now we also have purists as well too, where the Memphis style, where it's dry rub rib, you know, dry rub only. Certain people do put sauce on it as well too. However, if you're doing like KCBS style competitions, they like the sauce and all that stuff too. So we're gonna check out, see what we got going on here. Okay, as you can see, there's a nice bark. The color is starting to look nice and mahogany too. Starting to cook pretty nicely. We got a nice clean fire going on. So what we're gonna do now is put a little layer of sauce on the top, more so kind of like what they refer to as a mop, but I don't like using the brush method with the cotton. I just like using a bottle, and it really keeps things more sanitary and easier to clean up too. So we're just simply gonna spray a little bit on, just like that. And also too, if you got the liquid that's mixed in with the barbecue sauce mixed in with the apple juice, it's going to spread a lot easier and even. And then also keep in mind too, when we turn this over, just be really careful because we work pretty hard to get that nice bark and crust. We don't want to really rip anything off, so just very carefully turn it over and just do the same thing. Just like that. And then we'll very carefully turn it back over. Put it just like that. Okay, so now we coated the ribs with our mixture here. Now also keep in mind too, you don't want to necessarily sauce your ribs with the full power of barbecue sauce. That's why I like to cut it a little bit because there's a lot of sugar in there. You don't want it to burn or get that real black, crusty look just yet. I like having mine to where it has that nice red sheen to it. Some people do like the black crust to it. It's not necessarily burnt, but I just prefer the redness and mahogany looking color because it gives it that nice wow factor to it. But I mean, you can use a nice squeeze bottle like this, you know, it's fairly cheap. You can mix it with apple juice, Worcestershire sauce, vinegar. I'm a big fan of cider vinegar as well too with your favorite barbecue sauce. So really the options are endless on what to do. Now just to give you an idea of what a clean burning fire looks like, this is exactly what a clean burning fire should look like. It should not be smoldering or slightly fading all over the place where you have white billowing smoke coming out of the smokestack. That's an incomplete combustion and you're gonna over smoke your food. Now with this right here, we're burning at a little bit of a hotter temperature, around 275, and I like to use a little bit hotter temperatures for my barbecue because it's gonna make more of a flavorful crust on the outside. And then as you can see right here, there's barely any smoke coming out whatsoever. It is super clear. That means that your fire is burning really clean right now. Now when you start to add in a few more logs to it to replenish, you're gonna get a little bit of smoke, but nothing too crazy. But this is almost like transparent because your fire is burning very efficiently. Okay, so now we just sauced our ribs, show you what a clean burning fire looks like. We also have the door that's cracked open a quarter of the way so we get plenty of oxygen going in through there. We don't want to have it open too much because if you do, again, the heat will start escaping out that way. The idea is to fuel the fire just clean enough so you're getting that nice clear smoke look. So after the next 15 minutes, when our basting sauce starts to caramelize, we're going to wrap it, and this is what it's referred to as the Texas Crutch. Okay, so now we're back. We're going to check out and see what we have. As you can see, there's a nice little sheen to it. You got a nice color, bark and all that. Okay, so now we're going to wrap it up, and this is what is referred to again as the Texas Crutch. So we're going to get a little bit of moisture on there. So as it cooks, it kind of steams just a little bit and starts to tenderize. Even put a little bit onto the tin foil itself. Puts it right on the cooker. Be very careful with the bark that you worked hard to get. Turn it over, carefully remove. Give it another light spritz. And again too, you could just use apple juice as well. You don't have to use the mixture of the barbecue sauce, but since it's here, I like using it. Okay, set it on the side. And we close it and wait for another 2 hours. Okay, so now it's been 2 hours. We're gonna open up our smoker. I'm being very careful. I'm gonna unwrap. So these are very tender right now, so what we're gonna do is take our sauce one more time. It's more of a finisher. Spritz it again, pretty nicely. Turn. Bring in tin foil and just rest it right on top. So being careful now. Just gonna put a little more on there. And then close the lid to let it finish and tighten up a bit. Okay, so now it's time to take the ribs off the smoker. Looking very nice. It's got the nice deep mahogany color as well. And be careful when you take them off to go slide underneath so you don't ruin any of the bark. And we're gonna go plate these up. Okay, now we have our finished product. They're nice and tender. It's got a great color to it. It's got the nice deep mahogany color just like I was saying as well. So now we're gonna cut right into it. Okay, and then as we cut into it too, you want to see how the bones are structured, like if they're leaning to the left or to the right a little bit. So always make sure that you utilize good cutting technique with a good serrated blade. This is more of a bread knife, but I really like it for using barbecue or for cutting barbecue. So curling your fingers back and tucking your thumb, and then carefully running the blade right through. Okay, and then we'll plate it. You could also put your extra favorite barbecue sauce on the side, so I can kind of bring it out, and then fan it just as such. There we go. Okay, so there you have it. That's how you make the perfect ribs utilizing the Texas style smoker. So if you like this video and found it helpful, please hit the like button and also hit the subscribe button as well too for future content that I can help you cook like a professional. Thank you very much. Well, and welcome to another episode of the Semper higher lineage and content in the wood. Okay, so now we have a pretty good rolling fire. Close the top hatch. And then now the idea is that to control the fire, I do not use this damper whatsoever. I just leave the door just a little bit, not too much. God damn flies. 2 flies, 3. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the wood that went. I wrote and I can't even say the damn lines. Jesus. Okay, when starting the fire, she better keep that dog quiet, I swear to God.